popping all that bullshit. I be seeing you, Jimmy, talking about we Gucci boo boo. He in the Gucci store. Talking about we Gucci boo boo. Them Latin King was going up. Jimmy like, Marita Manera. Coca-Cola.
It sounds like he want to do one with 50 Cent. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like Jim.
Nah, I don't want to do nothing with that sucker. You heard? Leave him out of the conversation.
Jim Jones, who is Jim Jones, right? He's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family.
When Jay did the remix, it was the biggest alley-oop he could do for me. I understood a lot about music, and at that time, people were looking at the wrong way, and I was looking at the right way.
Just now, 50 Cent ruined Jim Jones by making fun of Nas. Furthermore, he unveiled this uncommon footage, which shows how Jim deceived Jay-Z by pleading for a Roc Nation contract after labeling Jay soft.
If I told you I was in the Roc Nation office, how would you feel about that? Huh? You think I was lying? That's clear enough for you?
You all know that although 50 respects Nas, he has never been a fan of Jim or Jay. Jim's recent boasts about how much better he was than Nas and how he had restored Nas' stardom infuriated 50. It's likely that I did something Nas has never done. He has never done anything that has been shared so much. Never. Moreover, 50 showed more than Jim's disdain for Nas. Jim's long history of operating like a snake and betraying people is connected to this. By switching between begging and meat, submission and scorn, Jim has been flipping the narrative for years, in particular with reference to Jay-Z, and that's the problem. For over a decade, Jim teased Jay. In fact, he slapped Jay's executive. But when he needed a deal, Jim begged to be signed and called Jay-Z a hero, scuttling back to him. 50 is using this chance to reveal Jim's true identity. No loyalty, no position, and no respect for the culture he claims to represent characterizes this man. However, it's just the beginning. The tale of how Jim's hatred for Nas backfired to the point where people like 50 were able to learn about Jim's past and expose everything is a whole other story. First, let's look at Jim's shift from mocking Jay to showing empathy.
People shouldn't be able to say your names until they've done something in the genre of music. I've done too much in this music to even have to answer that question. Like Jim Jones, who is Jim?
50 Cent has no qualms about calling out dishonest athletes, as everyone is aware. Recently, Jim Jones claimed that Jim was Jay-Z's lapdog after Jim insulted Nas, which further illustrated his tendency to shift his viewpoint. And in case you missed it, Jim claimed to be better than Nas. He even got into a furious dispute with Shannon Sharpe about how he was capable of outperforming Nas in the booth.
And I don't care what nobody say. I know I made a little boo-boo when you talk about the sales and all this type. I don't feel like getting into that rhetoric about where I started and where he started.
Well, you said that.
But listen, Nas was nice when I was in high school. When I was in 10th grade, Nas came out. Nas was dope. We appreciated him. He had a little bit run. But Nas always came up second to Jay and DMX and all these other people.
But lyrically, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you.
Yeah, but look how you dress. Look how you dress. You don't even be in the same places I be in. And the things
I can be in the church house. You can't help Nas lyrics. I don't know who told you that. Now look, y'all know you on that good stuff, but you not seeing Nas.
Bro,
you're not seeing Nas, bro. Let's be real.
You got a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds in their panties because I said I'm better than Nas.
It don't matter.
Look at you. Hey, I will run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now. Right now, I will run Saturn around Nas right now rapping. Everybody knows it.
Despite criticism from other rappers for being too lenient, Jim took a position and boasted about making Nas relevant again for the first time since Nas's split with Jay-Z.
Ever, he's never been talked about like this ever in his life.
Has Nas that to you?
You did. The last time he was in some this what people were comparing when him and Jay was beating on him.
As you are now aware, 50 Cent had to step in and remind Jim of his personal relationship with Jay after Jim brought up the topic. And 50 did it. An old video of Jim at Roc Nation headquarters, appearing cheerful and vivacious, was aired. I hunt success. I was asked if I had more enemies than friends, 50 said in the caption, showcasing Jim's accomplishments. I gave it some thought and remarked, Yes, for me, it's funny to me.
If I told you I was in the Rock Nation office, how would you feel about that? Huh? You think I was lying? That's clear enough for you? Talk to me. Let me know your sentiments. You heard?
You may think that 50 is being petty, but if you know the full tale of Jim Jones and Jay-Z's connection, his essay will make more sense. As you can see, Jim denigrated Jay-Z for 13 years using public statements, diss recordings, and even street fights. He went all out, however, and begged Jay's consent when the time was right. Additionally, it is the primary goal. His latest Nas CD is the kind of strategy that will backfire horribly, repeating his entire questionable history. Jim had chopped Jay and smacked one of Jay's executives, so how could he ask Jay to sign him? Let's travel across time now. When Dame Dash invited Jim Jones and Cameron to Rockefeller in 2002, it all started. At Rock, Jim claims that Cam was even offered the position of vice president. Jay, however, chose to keep this a secret. Later in the year, Cam told the source, "I'm not even sure if I'll accept the part just yet, although we're still talking about it, Dame. I mean, I can have that. I'm the owner." Jay gave his okay, as you can see, and told the source that it hasn't been implemented yet. I think the time for this conversation is a little too soon. The tension, therefore, was there at once. Later, Jay included a verse that was a jab at Nas in his remix of the song Oh Boy, which was originally by Cameron and Jules Santana. The remix was not released by Jim and Cam, but Cam decided to leave out Jay's part and later declared that he would not permit Jay to use their song to make amends.
Did a little something for you in the studio. Then he had something to Old Boy.
This is Old Boy's already #1?
Yeah, it's popping. I listened to it and I was like, erase that.
That was a very big change. According to Jim and Cam, Jay was not interested in them. This marked the start of the official sneak peek period. In radio appearances and interviews, Jim started disparaging Jay more regularly, accusing him of being corporate, sissy, and disconnected from the streets.
First of all, let's get right to it. There seems to be some drama. You and The Rock, Jay-Z, you try to diss. You did diss him. I diss nobody. You dissed him. I dissed Michael Jordan. Oh man, we just there's no drama, man. No, we're gonna get to that. Shout out to Dame Dash, who started Rockefeller Records. If y'all don't know, he's responsible for Rockefeller getting off the floor. That started in Harlem. You know what I'm talking about?
Jim stressed that Dipset was raw, flamboyant, and belligerent in his movement. Jay's more formal and businesslike manner was used by Jim to claim that the streets had abandoned him.
I'm on there, Jones. Capo. Burning the streets up. Y'all know what it is, man. Purple Haze coming out. My dude Cam album coming out. Joel Santana, he's slated for September. You know what they call me, Geronimo Pratt. Dipset, the new Black Panther. Want no problems. I promise you.
At first, Jay took a long time to respond, but everyone was aware of the conflict within Rockefeller. In 2006, Jim's album We Fly High was released. The viral success of the song Ballin' led to its success.
I'm sitting clean with the bottom kitted. I hopped out sagging jeans in my rock listen. But I spent about $8 grand, mommy on stage, doing the ranges.
Jim eventually wrote a hit song by himself. Back then, Jay-Z felt he had to respond. A remix of Jim's original song, Brooklyn High, is now accessible. It was not, however, a tribute. The individual was an offender. Jim's demeanor, ad-libs, and bars were all ridiculed by Jay. The atmosphere was cold, contemptuous, and surgical. Jim, however, reversed the positions and used the beef mix as payback, calling Jay old, weak, and archaic. However, at this moment, the war began to seep into the real world, and chaos ensued. Security tape shows Jim harassing someone at a Louis Vuitton store in 2008. Jay-Z's longtime A&R, Lenny Santiago, was later found to be the victim. Jim pleaded, guilty to misdemeanor assault and was consequently placed under arrest.
Jim Jones, the rapper, is going down. Jim Jones. Jim Jones.
Even though Jay said nothing in public about the incident, the message was clear in private. There was no longer a rap dispute. Personal. Several months later, Jay spoke with XXL on the state of rap music today. In addition, he ridiculed Jim by attributing the cultural decline to songs like Nah 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 by Jim. Jay went on, "I don't mean this because we're never in agreement." Using Jim Jones as an example, Nah 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 was his invention. How come the smiley faces of Sulia Boy and Trey Songz are different from other looks that would have been called smiley? Facial expression. Now Jay was taking strategic shots. Despite not being homeless, he was nevertheless able to mock Jim without getting his hands filthy. Nevertheless, the dispute subsequently intensified into a Cold War. The years 2010 to 2015 were characterized by a tranquil strain, without any confrontations or diss recordings. At the same time, Dipset freestyles over Diddy's 2015 smash single. Jim and Cam both ridicule Jay and Rock Nation, refer to the label industry as puppets, ridicule the brunch movement in general, and even bring up Bianca. "Making money doesn't make you a real one," Cam declared. "You wandered along the court. Are you up for my game? Pronounce my name like Shadi instructed." That was how they were trying to agitate me. Jay-Z had already achieved the status of a billionaire. He is now a sports manager, has his own streaming company, began collecting art, and is married to Bianca. Jim and Cam were still yelling from the sidelines, but he didn't notice. Jay actually brought this up in a recently leaked film, likening Jim to Michael Jordan and the eighth guy on the bench who rants at the MVP.
Pop, of course, you know, it's a competitive sport. But on the other end of it, it's like certain people shouldn't be able to say your names until they've done something in the genre of music. I've done too much in this music to even have to answer that question. Like Jim Jones, who is Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's not no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family. I was saying last night, it's like the eighth guy on the bench just screaming at Jordan, like, you a bum. Like, you want to be like the ninth guy on the bench. I'm not even worried about you.
Jim realized now he was just trying to make Jay look stupid. He is also currently being ridiculed by 50 Cent for exactly what he did after that. Jim started begging Jay to sign him after having second thoughts. Finally, in February 2017, Jim agreed to a deal with Rock Nation. Having been hostile for 13 years, he also officially joined Jay's squad.
Jay's longtime nemesis turned collaborator Fat Joe signed to Rockefeller, and now it looks like another former rival will be relying on Ho's team to steer his career, as Dip says Jim Jones is allegedly heading over to Rock Nation. Capo posted a picture of bottles of Juice and Ace of Spades next to a Rock Nation letterhead on IG and told fans to caption it.
He didn't sign quietly either. He started to brag about being invited to Rock Nation for Jay's brunch. It used to amuse him. He began to praise Jay publicly. He was just doing his best to stay loyal to Jay. According to the same man who used to abuse his companion, accuse him of betraying the streets, and ridicule him for being soft, Jay was always his role model. However, Jay said nothing. Jim did not receive any public praise for joining Rock Nation, without a single introduction. In fact, Jim and Jay are shown together in just one photo since Jim joined Rock Nation. Even in this picture, it seems like Jay would want to be somewhere else. When Jim finally took his seat at the table, Jay communicated that they were not and would never be on the same page. Jim was just a man in Rock Nation. This, which is actually rather amusing considering Jim's claim that he wasn't Jay-Z, helped him become well known for over a decade. From 2002 to 2017, He positioned Dipset as the antithesis of Roc Nation and the alternative to Jay's corporate image on the street. Money, however, won out in the end. The reputation Jim had built up over the years crumbled when he requested a deal. It was not necessary for Jay-Z to ridicule him. He did not need to respond. He merely waited. At last, Jim bowed. Jay accepted the meeting, signed the contract, and went on. Along with it was precisely what 50 Cent stated. After ridiculing Jay for years, Jim pleaded to be seated at the table. Now, if Jim hadn't made the mistake of ignoring Nas's history, this probably wouldn't have been discovered. However, Jim let others like 50 go further and expose Jim's long history of vacillating and seeming to be loyal. And the receipts are excessively heavy. How much of this fallout will spread is the question today. Upon completion of the damage, will Jim's career be restored?